All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I don't want to be very long. I just wanted to share um, this book because I came across it. We're getting ready to put some books in storage, and we were trying to decide what books we were going to take over to the other facility, and which ones we were going to discard, and which ones we were going to pack up and put in storage. And I came across this book, and I was like, "Wow, I know some of these women on the cover of the book, but I don't know all of them." And then I looked at the subtitle, "A Forgotten Sisterhood: Pioneering Black Women Educators and Activists in the Jim Crow South." And so, if any of you know me, you know that I'm always studying our elders and our ancestors because I want to be as effective as possible in teaching our children. And so, uh, yeah, I had to pick it up, and then once I started reading it, it was a must that I get my own copy, and that's what I do a lot. Sometimes I'll check books out from the library, and then once I realize that I need my personal copy so that I can have it as a reference, I go ahead and purchase it. And I found this one on Thrift Books, and so uh, I started studying and reading back during the summer, and here we are. I was talking to some guys, to some brothers, a couple weeks ago on their podcast, which is Sticks and Stones, a local podcast, and we were talking about uh, teaching our children, and I was referencing so many of our ancestors, Mama Fanny Jackson Coppin, Mary Church Terrell, Anna Julia Cooper, and these women that I'm going to be speaking of today. But first, I want to welcome everyone to Read Black with me. This is where I come to share books, to talk about books, and the relevance of why we need to read and study so many of our great ancestors, elders, and even contemporary authors, because reading is a great thing to do. You know, I often hear Brother Akil talk about how math and knowing math helps build critical thinking skills. Well, reading and math go hand in hand. He and I talk about that from time to time. But first, let me start by saying, y'all see, I got my dashiki on. And so yesterday I made a post and I created a flyer with our great ancestor Kwame Ture sporting his dashiki. I don't want to leave my screen yet. So this is a picture of Baba Kwame Ture in his dashiki, and I made a post because this time of the year we get caught up in so much of the excitement of the quote holiday season that we tend to forget and get lost in the sauce. Right? We have a culture that was here, that we established before any of these days came upon us, and so Dashiki Day um, is something that we gotten away from. I was looking back at my Facebook memories from 6 or 7 years ago, and it seemed like everybody was celebrating um, dashikis and our culture. And it was, it put a smile on my face to go back and see so many people tag me in their pictures of them wearing dashikis. And I want us to get back to our culture because I see all the costumes and I see all the parties and I see all the candy, but I rarely see us excited about days for us. And so in the 2024 calendar and planner that was created a few months ago and is still available for a donation of $20, there is an entry the week of October 28th to November 3rd, 2024, where I write about the dashiki, about Dashiki Day, and ask the question, what is culture? What is culture? And so, there is a Black culture, but I want to say that dominant society is kind of dictating and creating a narrative behind it, and it is creating a negative connotation to Black culture. We got to take that Black, y'all. We have to take it Black, and we have to take control of the narrative of Black culture. And one way to do that is by celebrating our days, Dashiki Day. And I'm going to be talking about another day that's coming up where we're going to have a program and to celebrate our culture. Sorry about that, y'all. Somebody was outside waving, and because I'm at the Culture Center here at the Culture Center in Coldwater on the square in Mississippi. So yeah, just wanted to talk a little bit about Dashiki Day. Y'all get those dashikis out. Let's celebrate our culture. You know, you wear your costumes, but wear your dashikis as well. Okay. So yeah, Dashiki Day. Um, so I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the book. I'm not going to talk a lot about it. I'm just going to give my assessment of it and share some passages from the book and what I gathered and retained from the book and how I'm going to use it in what I do. Okay. So this is the cover of A Forgotten Sisterhood written by Sister Audrey Thomas McCluskey. And on the cover, you have a group of women. This, I think it is the Federation, Southeast Federation of Colored Women Clubs, which was founded by the great Mama Mary McLeod Bethune. So from my left, I guess that would be your left too, we have Margaret Murray Washington, who was the wife of, I think she was the third wife of Booker T. Washington. Next to her, you have Mary McLeod Bethune. We're going to be talking about a little bit tonight. And then you have Lucy Craft Laney next to her. She's a subject of the book. Next to her, there's Mary Jackson McCrory, and she was an associate principal at Haynes, which was the school founded by Lucy Craft Laney. And then on the second row, there's Mama Janie Porter Burnett. She founded the Virginia Industrial School for Colored Girls, and it was kind of a rehab institution for so-called delinquents. Next to her, uh, there's M.L. Crossway, and I could not find a lot of information on this mama, but she was part of this great organization. Another mama that is the subject of this book is Charlotte Hawkins Brown, who is standing next to Miss Mama ML, Charlotte Hawkins Brown, and then next to her you have Eugenia Burns Hope, who was a founding member of the National Association of Colored Women's founding. No, I'm sorry, National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. So those are the women that are on the cover, because I know when I looked at the cover, I recognized, as I said earlier, a few of the mamas, but I didn't know all of them. And so there is, of course, in the book, they tell you who those women are. And so I wanted to look them up to have a better understanding of who the rest of the women were that I don't know. So when you start the book, there's an interesting quote that starts the first chapter of the book, and I shared it with a friend when I read it some time ago, because it was kind of powerful to me. It says, "We have to do more than other women," and that was a quote garnered by Mama Mary Church Terrell. And if you know Mary Church Terrell, you know that she was a great suffrage activist, and she was an educator as well. In fact, I think she taught one of the women, Mama Nanny Burroughs, excuse me, Mama Nanny Burroughs at M Street in Washington, D.C. And she and Mama Anna Julia Cooper and Mama Betty Jackson Cobbin are a couple other women and the ancestors that I have studied and used as an example to what it is that we do here at Ashe Academy. So she said we have to do more than other women. And a lot of times we in this modern society want to take that in a negative way. But when you really read and understand these mamas, you know that that was because we know that women carry the narrative, right? And women have the ability, Black women have the ability to change the course of the world. So the first chapter is dedicated to why all these women should be celebrated, should be studied and celebrated because they fought against the odds to do what it was that they did. And so their stories must be told, their stories have to be told, they have to be remembered, they have to be used as an example of the standard that we need in educating our children. Of course, some of the methods and some of the ideology can be tweaked, evolved, and repurposed, but when you look at the standards that they set, you like, man, we were doing this and our children were learning this way. And we can get back to that because they expected no less. They expected Black excellence in every meaning, every facet of what that was. All right. So we're going to start with Lucy Craft Laney. The book describes her as an activist educator. And so it opens with this quote: "The educated Negro woman must teach the Black babies. She must come forward and inspire our men and boys to make a successful onslaught upon sin, shame, and crime." And when you start uh, thinking about those things, and you think about the quotes that we love to repeat, the Black woman is God. The nation can hide no the nation can rise no higher than this woman. Um, you teach a man, you teach a individual, you teach a woman, you teach a nation. And so all of their methods and their standards and expectations reflected that. They reflected that they knew that Black women, we are the nurturers, we are the encouragers, we inspire, we keep grounded, we do all these things. So it is upon us, right, to teach the next generation. Mama Lucy Craft Laney, um, she was born in 1854 in Macon, Georgia, during the Reconstruction era. And let me see if I can get a picture of her up here right quick, because I want you all to see these great women that I'm speaking of. There she is. There's Mama Lucy Craft Laney. She was born during Reconstruction to parents who uh, bought their freedom. Her mother was literate, and she taught her children as well. So she was I think, was she the 15th of the 17th? No, she wasn't. She had uh, brothers and sisters, but I can't quite remember how many. But she would go on to attend Atlanta University, which is now Clark Atlanta University. And she taught in the public school for some time, but she didn't like that. And I wanted to read what she said. So she said initially she was invited by prominent Black leaders in Augusta to run the Fourth Ward Grammar School. There she earned a sterling reputation and was one of only 2 Black teachers in the city to receive a second-level teaching certificate. After 10 years of experience in the public system, and with a growing sense that the public school cannot take the place of the mission school, she founded what was informally called Miss Laney's School in Augusta. Laney was greatly incensed by the widely held perception among whites that Black women were unfit to teach children, and she wanted her school to focus on Black girls and disprove the charge that they were unfit for the classroom. She began with minimal resources and fewer prospects, partly because of existing perceptions that favored male leadership. Also, Laney did not strictly adhere to the industrial education philosophy that was favored by the Slater Fund and the General Education Board, prominent, prominent funding organizations for Black educations. Education. These philanthropies wanted the Hampton Tuskegee model of industrial education installed and popularized by Booker T. Washington to be the model for their support. And so she wanted to add a more rounded curriculum to her institutions. And so she was already bucking the system, right? So she would go on to create her Haynes Institute, but she named Haynes after one of her white women supporters, and so that right there, uh, kind of cast a shadow on her, and it also would go on to cast a shadow on one of the other women that we're going to be talking about in the book as well. But I want to move forward and talk about some of the standards that she had in her school. She had community outreach programs, early childhood education, and the cultivation of both black and white female support were all ideas and concepts that Mary Mae Lloyd Bethune remembered her having in her schools. So the work she was being honored began with a curriculum of basic primary level work, but there was no documentation of what she taught the 5 girls and 1 boy who were her first students. We know that Laney developed a pioneering kindergarten program and steadily expanded and upgraded the courses. By the 1890s, the curriculum included English, mathematics, the Bible, biology, physics, sociology, French, Latin, Greek, and political science. There were several courses in music and history, ancient history, United States history, and Negro history. Haynes also had a debate team, a dramatic group, a choral ensemble, and a literary society, as well as the first organized football team in the city. And she also offered vocational uh, courses, cosmetology, shorthand, bookkeeping, skills that people could go out and find a job, get a job, and right away. So she wanted to teach everything. She had a broad array of courses that she offered. And so she was well versed. She was a very smart lady. She was just a model for others to come, right? She was a model for others to come. And one of those that came from her was a student of hers. Y'all know who this is. I know everybody knows who this is. This is let me go back. Greetings, Sister Mila. I was just coming on too to see if I had any comments because I don't want to miss my comments tonight. And so hold on, y'all. Me and StreamYard, we got this thing. if you know anything about StreamYard, you're gonna have a thing with it, right? So let me go back and find my pictures. So because I want you all to get the imagery of these women that I'm going to be talking about. I want you all to see them for yourself. Let me make sure I got them all up here while I'm back here getting them up. Okay, so I want y'all, here she is, to see one of my favorite people, Mary Mae Lloyd Bethune. So this is Mama Mary, and we know that she was born in Maysville. I think I'm saying that right, Maysville, South Carolina. Now she was the 15th of 17 children. Uh, so her parents bought some land and they worked the land, and she, because she was told by a little white boy that she couldn't read, she was determined to learn how to read. And so that's amazing because so many of our ancestors and elders, they that determination, you tell me what I can't do and I'm gonna do it, right? But anyway, she was the only Black woman and possibly the only woman to found a grammar school that would evolve into a university. So, in the book, it talks about, when they say she started her school with $1.50 and a hope and a prayer. They say that's folklore, but I don't think, no one knows during those times. I just don't know if that would be so. But one of the things she's quoted as saying in the book is the South has definitely committed itself to the task of keeping the Negro in his place. That place, by all accepted teaching and belief, is a must be for all time an inferior one. To keep Negroes inferior, they must be huddled in segregated ghettos without drainage, light, pavement, or modern sanitary convenience. They must be denied justice, make a decent living. They must be insulted and bullied and mobbed, discriminated against in public places, and denied access to parks and recreational centers. In dollars and cents, the cost of this system is tremendous to the Commonwealth, which sponsors it. And, it reminds me so much of what Commander Brother Patrick says most of the time. A lot of times when he says that we have to value our humanity. We have to value it. Then other people will value it. And this is one of the things that Mama Mary did. She and the others that I'm speaking of tonight, they knew we have a humanity, and they know that we have to have an education that will encourage and inspire that humanity that's in us, right? I also often call it the essence of who we are. So she would go on to say um, that education, she believed, had a dual purpose: survival and uplift. And that's what you're going to see as a common theme throughout the book. These mamas uh, wanted to use education as a means of uplift for the Black community, and they also stressed that the woman take the lead in doing that, right? Having a proper education to uplift the Black community in a way that it needs to be uplifted. And so I with me, carry that with me all the time, because yes, we do need the academics, but we also have to learn how to treat each other, how to love ourselves, how to, like one of them says, keep a home. That's Mary McLeod Bethune. She said the proper home life provides the proper atmosphere for life everywhere else. And so sometimes when you're talking about the children in the school and their behavior, and we love to say it starts at home, but we have lost the art of teaching how it starts at home, because throughout all these institutions that I'm going to be talking about tonight, they included that in the curriculum. They included how to be a whole person, how to be a whole woman, how to be a whole man. There's nothing degrading about taking care of your family. All right. Mama Mary said, what use is an educational system that does not have its roots in the life and needs of the people, right? So she was adamant about teaching young girls, but she had boys as well. But the foundation for all of these women were the girls, because again, you teach a man, you teach an individual, you teach a woman, you teach a nation, right? So we have to know that it's not a burden. It's not a burden to teach our children. It's something that we should be adamant about doing as women. Okay. So she had we all know that all of them had limited resources from the outset. So she was very creative in her fundraising techniques, and she will reach out to anybody. And so a lot of times now, in our desegregated, assimilated uh, critique of so many of our ancestors and elders, we want to talk about, where they got their source of funding from and things of that nature. But trust and believe that all of them really, they really needed the Black community or really wanted the Black community to fund their schools. But y'all remember, these were the early 1900s, late 1800s, and a lot of our ancestors, some elders, because there are some people still living, but a lot of our ancestors didn't have the financial means to support these schools monetarily, but they would support them in other ways. They would volunteer their services. They would donate needed materials. A lot of times, they would donate furniture to these schools and things of that nature. And a lot of men who had the carpentry skills would donate their skill set to help build these institutions. So now that we have money, we have, a lot that we can invest in. We don't, but we want to be critical of our ancestors who did not have, as they weren't as financially stable as we are, yet they have a legacy that we are learning about and studying, but aren't doing anything with it. Well, my goal is to change that. Okay, we're going to change that narrative, and we're going to begin to build institutions as our ancestors did. Okay, the next mama I want to talk about now. Okay, she is actually one of my favorites, and when I was reading the book, I was like, okay, I'm learning a lot about Mama Charlotte Hawkins Brown. She was born in Henderson, North Carolina, and I guess maybe she's one of my favorites because she shares her date of birth with my father. She was born on June 11th, 1883. Her family would move to Cambridge, Massachusetts, where she was educated. And so a lot of those ideas and standards of excellence that she learned while she was, quote, up north, she brought back to the South with her. Her institution was the Palmer uh, Memorial Institute in Sedalia, North Carolina. And it was actually what many people would call a finishing school. It evolved to a finishing school for middle class to upper class Black folks. And so she was really big on etiquette and social skills. And I was cracking up because in that chapter 5, which is dedicated to her, there is a lot of testimony from former students. The author interviewed a lot of her former students, and they shared their stories and their experience at Palmer. And a lot of them said, they said it was focused on academics, but she was more of a stickler for etiquette. They were very strict. They had a lot of rules because it was a boarding school. And let me go back because I actually learned about Mama uh, Charlotte a couple years ago when I was given a book about it was a fiction, it was a novel about a Black boarding school. And so my curiosity got the best of me, and I started looking up Black boarding schools. And currently, there are, I think, maybe 4 that are still open. One of them is here in Mississippi, and I'm gonna be talking about that later. But it led me to Mama Charlotte, and so Palmer Memorial Institute was a boarding school, and she, as I said, she focused on the middle to upper class Black folk, and she had people from all across the country come to her school, and a lot of them talked about the rules, very strict. And I read some narratives that all said that she was a little harder on the girls than the boys, and we know why, because these mamas knew that Black women are the key to the rise of the race. But on page 75 of the book, uh, she even speaks to that. She says that this says that her belief in the power of Black women to elevate themselves and their race reflects a version of Victorian ideas of womanhood that was shared by her contemporaries, including school founders Mary May Lloyd Bethune and Nanny Helen Burroughs, who I'm going to be talking about later, as well as Mama Anna Julia Cooper, who I spoke of when I was first opening up the discussion. Mama Anna Julia Cooper. In 1930, in New York, Buffalo, New York, Brown explained why the black woman should not imitate the quote vices of white women, including smoking, drinking, and carousing. She spoke directly to the young women in the audience, showing her view of their latent power. Young women, you can face the future only as you accept the responsibility resting upon your shoulders. I beg you to stop and think. The Negro man will be just what the Negro woman makes him. The truly powerful Negro woman has not yet arrived. But someday, this old world is going to reel and rock like a drunken man, and the Negro woman is destined to lead women of other races into a fuller and freer atmosphere of love and of things that are beautiful and helpful in our desire to solve the great question of race. Man, read that again because she firmly believed that black women, we have the power. She said it. She said the Negro man will be just what the Negro woman makes him. So all this gender war going back and forth and bickering and talking about what she ain't and what he ain't, we can change that whole dynamic. Stop complaining and start putting in the work, people. Let's do it. Let's get it going, right? So I was cracking up because in one part of the book they were talking about how she valued correct, proper English, and she would correct anybody. And they said this redneck white man came into the institute, and he kept saying nigger, like nigger, and she was like, "Sir, it's not nigger, it's negro." She said, "Look at me. This right here, say knee, and then say grow." And it was cracking me up because we often think that our people don't have courage and didn't have this and that and the other, but how many of y'all would do that? Okay, so yeah, so Mama Charlotte Hawkins Brown, she was the founder of Palmer Memorial Institute in North Carolina, and it closed its doors in 1971. And all through when I was reading some of the testimony from uh, the former students, a lot of them said, we need Palmer Institute now. We need this now. Although, right before the doors closed, the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement were coming to be, and a lot of the students there rebelled against some of the strict rules. In fact, they burned a couple of buildings down on campus because of the strict rules. So yeah, it might not would have survived, but we definitely need the structure and the discipline, because now I'm finding people are acting like discipline is a bad word. Discipline is not a bad word. Discipline means order, right? Undisciplined is chaos. And we see where that chaos is taking us. So yeah. So I'm gonna take a minute and read some comments because I don't want to miss anything. Thank you for education. Thank you, Asante, for tuning in and sharing those kind words with me. Yes, Brother Stephen, I did mention Mama Mary Church Terrell at the beginning of the discussion because she is not, she's referred to, she's referenced in this book. Mama Church, Mary Church, and Mama Anna Julia Cooper are referenced in this book because the last mama I'm going to talk about is Nanny Helen Burroughs, and they were both teachers. They were both her teachers at M Street, M Street in Washington, D.C. when she was in D.C. And M Street was known for its excellent education because during this time, a lot of Black educators could only teach at Black schools, right? And so M Street had excellent educators, and Mama Mary Church is one of those. And Mary Church Terrell is special to me as well because she and I share the same born day, September 23rd. She was born in Memphis. If you are from the Memphis area and Church Park is named for her father, Robert Church. I did not learn that until a few years ago when I was reading Black Fortunes, and it was focusing on Black millionaires. And Robert Church, who was Mary Church Terrell's father, was one of the people that was uh, highlighted in that book. And it gave his story. His mother was enslaved. She was from Natchez, I think, Natchez, Mississippi. And then he ended up with his father, who was a slaveholder on his ship and worked for him. And then he came in to the Memphis area and bought a lot of the property on Beale Street and developed Beale Street. And so, yeah, so it's a lot of excellence all around us that we don't know about. And so that's one of my goals, is to share that with us. Okay. So yeah, she was one of the great teachers of the next mama that I want to talk about, and that is Nanny Helen Burroughs. And so in the calendar that I shared earlier, I have written about her in the calendar because I was just fascinated with her story once I started learning about her. Uh, because I find myself, you know, doing a lot of writing as well, like she did. She did a lot of writing in her teaching career, um, and she was very outspoken and highly critical of anyone, male, female, black, and white. So she was born in Orange, Virginia, but spent most of her life in Washington, D.C. And as I said, she would go on to uh, M Street. I think it's called M Street, but it has since been renamed the Paul Laurence Dunbar School in 1916. So, as I said, the faculty members were Mary Church Terrell and Julia Cooper, and they were Oberlin graduates. And so she received an excellent education, and she wanted to go on and teach as well, but she could not find a teaching job in the DC area, and she attributed to her complexion. She felt that most of the educators, black women educators, were fairer and lighter skinned, and so she moved on and she became part of, I want to say, the American Missionary Association, Baptist Association, National Baptist Convention, and did her work there. She started writing, and uh, then she opened her school in DC. Okay, and I was trying to find, because I wanted to read a couple of uh, her quotes. She uh, was known for the school of the three B's: the Bible, the bath, and the broom. This paired with a focus on domestic science were representations of Burroughs' belief in elevating the principles of a clean life, clean body, and clean home for Black women. Okay. And she, like I said, anybody could get it when as far as she was concerned, she was very adamant about the Black race, and she would not allow anyone to come in and make us feel inferior. I wanted to read this quote. Well, it's a part of an article she wrote, because there, of course, this was during Jim Crow and segregation and all those things. And so there was a minister, an evangelist, a white evangelist, Billy Sunday, and he was planning a campaign, kind of like a revival, in Washington during the winter months of 1918. In the prior summer, he had gone to Atlanta and did the same thing, but he wanted to speak to segregated crowds, right? And so she wrote an article, and it says that she blasted the notion, calling it religious Jim Crowism. She said, you must be under the impression that the colored people of this city want to hear you. This is not true. However, they may be willing to arrange for a quote performance in one of their own churches if the weather is favorable, but we cannot promise, even under favorable weather conditions, to have any intelligent Negro see and hear you. Those who might attend would be just as ignorant as the Negroes in Atlanta who accommodated for you. She was basically saying you can go on back to Atlanta and deal with them because we not having that here. We ain't stupid enough to let you come and speak to us as a segregated crowd. So you can go on with that. And so those were things that she did and she wrote about and she used kind of like Ida B. Wells. She used her pen, her paper, and her voice to bring out the injustices that Black people suffered during that time. In fact, she wrote uh, a proclamation that was titled 12 Things White People Must Stop Doing to the Negro, including penalizing Negroes for not being white, teaching race prejudice to children, and putting up barriers such as discriminatory laws and practices. And so her school, trying to find her school, the National Training School for Negro Women and Girls, was established in D.C. They wanted her to stay in the South, but she wanted to move to D.C. because she knew that that was the capital and it was a prominent place in the country, and it was where she spent so much of her time. She was raised there, right? And so she started this school, and it still was in existence. I think it closed its doors. I was trying to find it. It closed its doors maybe 10 years ago. So it was one of the longest standing schools. Of course, we know Bethune-Cookman College still exists in Daytona Beach, Florida. So that's just kind of a brief overview of the book. In the last couple of chapters, it talks about the legacy of these four women. And Lucy Craft Laney, they have part of the school that survived is now a museum in Georgia. And she and Dr. Martin Luther King are the only two Black people in the state that have the forever flame, the flame that continues on. And of course, we have Bethune-Cookman College in honor and as a legacy work of Mary McLeod Bethune. Charlotte, there's a Charlotte Brown Museum in Sedalia, North Carolina, and it is a Black community. So we're excited about that, right? And then the Nanny Burroughs, they have the Nanny Burroughs Street. I forgot what street was named that. I think it's the one that's right in front of her school building that still sits there. So they all left a lasting legacy, and one that I'm going to continue to read and study because, not so much for the academics, but for the standards of excellence you can learn. It's kind of like Mama Fannie Jackson Coppin, who was told that Black children couldn't learn, so she made it her mission to disprove that. And so these women did the same, basically. And so as I study and I read about their expectations, you are somebody. One of the narratives of Mama Charlotte was when you got to Palmer Memorial, PMI, you automatically felt that you were part of the family. She had 200 students, and it was said that she knew the name of every student, and she would speak to students about their behavior, about them being role models, the upperclassmen being role models for the younger students. And if they did something that was not in line with the mission and goals of PMI, they would be sent home. And people did not want that. Most of the students there remember it was a beautiful time. It helped set their foundation in life. And so, as I stated earlier, many of her students, when they were remembering their experience, they all said that we need a Palmer Institute today. And so, that is what makes Umar idea so powerful. You know, you don't have to agree with everything. You don't have to agree with him personally, but the idea of having a boarding school where our children can learn how to interact with one another daily, can learn skills that will be beneficial to the survival of not only them but us as Black people. It's a powerful idea and it's a powerful concept. Having teachers that look like you and really care about you learning is major. I just remember the stories my mom would tell me um, about when she was growing up. She went to a segregated school system, and the teacher, she said that if she didn't remember anything else, she knew her teachers were concerned about them learning, because it wasn't just about the academics, as I said. It was about being a total productive human being in this world. And so she would always have beautiful memories, even though they didn't have, the facilities or the equipment and supplies, the books that the white schools had. They had a whole sense of family, village. The people took care of each other. And so, we need to get back to that because we're losing it. And then when you read about and you learn that these women really valued it, really felt that it was an honor and a privilege to be the teachers of our future generation. They valued that. Um, it keeps you grounded for real. It made me think about why I do what I do. I do love the children I work with. It is a special calling. It's not like we say now, uh, uh, it take a special person to teach children. Really, you know, seriously, if you have a mindset like that, how are we going to make it? How are we going to even teach our own biological children that, this is a burden? It's not a burden. It's a beautiful gift. It's a great assignment. It's a divine assignment to be able to teach the next generation. Stop letting people tell us that our children are a burden, because they are not. Stop letting people tell us that our children can't learn, because they are actually geniuses that have their genius suppressed in a school system that just wants them to sit down and shut up and listen and not be engaged and just memorize and not really think and learn, figure things out. So, I'm gonna get passionate about it because it's so frustrating to me, because I'm not a quote trained degree educator, but I am an educator, um, because I do work in higher education and I see um, the product of these educators, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so somewhere there's a disconnect, and I know what it is, because it's not out of love anymore. It's not out of being called to do this. It's being more so like, okay, this is my job. This is how I earn a living, or I don't get paid enough to do this, or I only get paid to do that. We don't go above and beyond. You think they made a lot of money? So I did want to mention another uh, ancestor, because her name is Wilhelmina Crossan. And when I was reading Fugitive Pedagogy, the art of Black teaching, the life of Carter G. Woodson by Jarvis Givens earlier this year, her name came up, and she was an excellent educator. She worked with Baba Carter G. Woodson in teaching our Black children who we are, where we came from, where we must go. But she was also the assistant to Lucy Craft Laney. And when I think about her, I think about Carter G. Woodson, and I think about how when we talk about Black History Month, we tend to forget that that is his legacy. We tend to forget that, of course, we teach Black history all year. If you read the book and you study Carter G. Woodson, you will know that he was adamant about teaching Black history all year. You would know that February is just a time that we choose to highlight what we have been learning all year instead of downing it and degrading it and not valuing it. We need to promote it, uplift it, and celebrate it. And so these are four women that I want to celebrate tonight. I want to celebrate Lucy Craft Laney. I want to celebrate Mary McLeod Bethune. I want to celebrate Charlotte Hawkins Brown. I want to celebrate Nellie Helen Burroughs. And I want you to look them up and celebrate them as well. If you get a chance, pick up the book of Forgotten Sisterhood. It's excellent. She did a lot of research because after each chapter, she has a bibliography, a lot of research, and a lot of pictures. And let's start taking our story Black. Um, I hate when people refer to our great mamas as feminists because just because they wanted our young girls to have education and they wanted women to have their place in society does not necessarily, and they spoke up and they spoke out against how men were mistreating them, the misogyny and things of that nature. That does not necessarily mean that they are feminists. They just know that the Black woman is the key to the uplift of the race. That doesn't make you a feminist, right? That makes you, or it is Mama Clenora Hudson Weems says, African womanism. African womanism. That's what it makes you. So again, pick up the book, read and study these great mamas, um, as well as Mary Church Terrell, as well as Anna Julia Cooper, as well as Wilhelmina Crossan, as well as Fanny Cotton Jackson, as well as I think that was it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Uh, we do have a couple of things that are going on here at the center. We have on the, let's see if I can pull it up, on the 19th of November. I am proud to say we'll be having a program, Head Wraps and Waist Beads. We'll be having Sister Channy, who is the owner of Sankofa Creates. She makes waist beads and ankle bracelets. So she's going to be coming in and talking about the significance of waist beads. And this is open to our queens, and we're opening it up to our princesses as well. So we're going to start teaching our young ladies, our babies, about the significance of waist beads, and they'll be able to have they'll be available for purchase, and Sister Channing will be able to help put those on. We'll also have demonstrations of how to do head wraps because head wraps are very significant in our culture. There'll be some available for purchase as well, and this will be November 19th. That is a Sunday. We'll be here at 4 o'clock at Restoration, and you'll be seeing more from me regarding um, that program. All right. And Sister Mila, I know she's gonna be pumping it up too. Yeah. So we're excited about that. We also have our culturally relevant Tuesday CRT for us here at the center from 4 to 6. And it's like kind of like a homework, but we also have our library up at the front of the center where children can come in and read books. We have cultural games. We'll be doing cultural activities. A couple weeks ago, we started with our pumpkin. So we're going to clean out that pumpkin tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the benefits of the pumpkin, the nutritional benefits of the pumpkin and its seeds. gonna roast the seeds, and we're gonna create some kind of something with the pulp from the pumpkin. So the children are always excited about that, doing stuff like that. We have 2 more sessions of Saturday school this year. The next session will be November 11th at 10 o'clock. And our Mistress of Health and Wellness, Sister Miller, is great. She opens us up every time, every session with movement or breathing exercise, and the scholars love that. So let me know if you're interested in that. And also we'll have our Read Black with Me. This is an adult version of Read Black with Me, but every week the children and I have been reading Black books. And tomorrow we'll be finishing up Family Reunion. It is a story of a young Black boy who at first doesn't want to go to the family reunion, but once he gets there and they start celebrating our heritage and our culture, he has a great experience. So we're reading that, and then we're going to be reading Freedom Soup, Freedom on Congo Street, and 2 books about Kwanzaa to close out the year. So the children have always been excited about that. They always love to come on, and they love to read. Um, the last announcement is that we still have planners available, everybody. The 2024 calendar and planner. So it's kind of like a book this year. So every week there's a narrative about a person, place, or event that's relevant to our story. And then each month is kicked off with a calendar of some of the days that we need to be celebrating. I know y'all can't see that because it's a glare, but every day is filled with a significant event. So I am going to get back to being consistent in the Read Black with Me. So next month, November 28th, I'm going to be reading this book. It doesn't have a dust jacket, but the name of it is The Little Professor of Piney Woods. And this is the story of Professor Lawrence James. And when I was telling you all about those boarding schools, I looked up to see if there were any boarding schools still in existence. And this is one that's here in Mississippi. And so I was very intrigued when I learned about this Baba. And I think actually his born day is around that time that we'll be doing the discussion. I know it's in November. So we're going to be talking about Piney Woods Boarding School, why this Baba decided to start a boarding school in Mississippi. And it's still in existence to this day. In fact, y'all know I work at a community college, and last year, I was looking at the basketball schedule, and they were on there. Piney Woods, they played Piney Woods last year. I was like, what? So yeah, so I'm excited about reading this and learning more about this great Baba who started this boarding school in Mississippi. And it was like the early 1900s, I want to say. Yeah, 1909. So yeah, so y'all grab this book. As I got this one at Thrift Books too, but I think the libraries have this book on their shelves. So just check it out. It's not a very big book. It's like a little over 100 pages. So read Black with me, y'all. And thank y'all for tuning in. And I hope to see y'all again. If I don't see your children on Tuesdays, I hope to see y'all again the last Monday of the month. So stay black and read black. Peace.